The day Mike and I got engaged, his fling jumped into the sea, leaving a message online. If you want to marry her, then punish yourself and lose me forever. Facing the media, Mike held my hand, smiling warmly. I have nothing to do with her. I will always love my wife. I was overjoyed, looking forward to our future. However, 3 days later, the usually reserved and polite Professor Mike committed suicide for love. The day Diana, the renowned dancer, jumped off a cliff from a great height. She left a letter for Mike. If you want to marry her, then punish yourself and lose me forever. The letter was anonymously posted online, causing a sensation on the internet. Netizens dug into Diana's past. They discovered that in her short, but brilliant life, there was always a man who loved her deeply and cared for her deeply. In the end, they missed each other due to their different backgrounds. This man was very likely my fiancé, Mike. When Mike heard this news, he was about to give me my engagement ring. The media swarmed in, bursting into the engagement scene. The questions were sharp and direct. Mike, have you seen Diana's message? Do you know Diana? What is your relationship with her? The flashlights flickered, and the cameras followed Mike closely. They all wanted to see a hint on this famous physics professor's face. Mike calmly replied, I have seen it. I have no relationship with her. Reporters kept pressing. But some people online say you and Diana were lovers. How do you respond to this? I nervously tightened my grip on his hand. It had been 10 years since I had been by Mike's side. I finally waited for his confession. How could such a ridiculous thing happen? I felt it was absurd, standing in front of the cameras, smiling and saying, we don't know any Diana. My fiancé, Mike, and I have been together for 10 years. Today, we are engaged. Please don't speculate recklessly. After saying that, I looked up, full of anticipation, waiting for Mike's response. Mike lowered his eyes, deep and calm. Yes, it's true. I am getting married. He tightly slid the ring onto my ring finger, kissed my forehead in front of the crowd, his stern eyes filled with tenderness. Anna, after tonight, your wish will come true. At that moment, I thought my long-standing love for Mike would finally be reciprocated. But 3 days later, the usually reserved and polite Professor Mike committed suicide for love. When I found Mike, he was lying in a pool of blood in the study. His eyes were closed tightly, his expression peaceful, like he was just sleeping. There was a deep, almost bone-visible wound on his wrist. Blood was flowing down his wrist, dyeing the carpet a bright red. I covered his wound, crying and calling for an ambulance. The doctor said Mike still had a chance. He needed to be saved. They found an old necklace in Mike's blooded shirt. When the nurse handed me the necklace, my heart was in confusion, because the necklace didn't belong to me. To make matters worse, that same night, photos of Mike being rushed to the hospital and the necklace were posted online by someone. Some internet users recognized that the pattern on the necklace was very similar to the ring on Diana's ring finger. The speculations from a few days ago were brought up again. The internet users were stirred up once more. That night, no one cared about my shock. Covered in blood, I was surrounded by a throng of reporters at the hospital entrance. Questions kept coming. Why did Mike cut his wrist? Was it because of Diana? Is that necklace their token of love? Trembling all over, I replied, holding back my imminent breakdown. Tonight was just an accident. I am his fiancé, and I hope everyone can refrain from mentioning irrelevant people. Yet, the incident made it to the top searches. Under the relentless probing of netizens, some hidden clues gradually surfaced. Mike's shadow appeared at every one of Diana's performances. In public, they never crossed the line, but Diana's earrings matched Mike's watch, from the same series for couples. And later on, Mike's personal belongings began to appear in Diana's photos from time to time, sometimes in the early morning, sometimes late at night, making netizens more certain that the two of them had an unknown underground romance. The writer painted a romantic picture of their past encounters with a gentle touch. And I, as the vicious homewrecker, was mercilessly criticized by netizens. Mike loved Diana for a lifetime. Why should he marry Anna? Arranged marriage, isn't it? A prodigy like Mike can't escape the fate of a political marriage. Can't a renowned dancer enter Mike's family's door? Truly absurd. Anna, can you see it? This is your dream come true in this prosperous age. The internet was flooded with hatred and insults. Alone, I sat by Mike's bed, feeling horrified and helpless. My few words of defense were quickly drowned out by the abuse. Now, all I pray for is Mike to wake up soon. There are too many questions I need him to answer. However, instead of receiving an explanation from Mike, I received another explosive piece of news. The single Diana had a 5-year-old daughter. A daughter. As I listened to the news report, I trembled, raising my eyes in confusion and helplessness. At the moment I saw the picture, I felt like I had been hit by a heavy blow. The little girl's eyes were almost identical to Mike's. In those brief moments, all the noise turned into a ringing in my ears. I listened to the ticking of the instruments, slowly lowered my head, and fell into despair. Could she be Mike's child? If so, where does that leave our child? After a week of coma, Mike finally woke up. His expression was calm. He explained the incident as an accident, but because of days of torment, I was mentally and physically exhausted. Mike, I need an explanation that I can believe. He looked at me with those beautiful eyes and said softly, I'm sorry for scaring you. He refused to answer any more questions. As for those baseless gossip, they disappeared without a trace the day after he woke up. His reason was, I will give my wife the respect she deserves. That was the answer I had been waiting for days. At that moment, tiredness overwhelmed me. I clenched my clothes. The report that was originally meant to show him turned into a crumpled paper lying deep in my pocket. I am pregnant. I haven't had a chance to tell him yet, but at this moment, I suddenly feel like whether to tell him or not is not that important. Mike has resumed his calm and considerate demeanor. He always puts me first, giving me all the respect. Friends always tease me. Seen your photo on Mike's desk again today. Now the whole school knows you two are a perfect match. But I know it's not like that. He is too polite to me, just like how he treats a stranger. Except for that one time when he got drunk. People say he respects you, and you should be grateful. You will know it after you get married. Friends say I have premarital anxiety, and they call to comfort me. Before hanging up that day, a friend suddenly remembered something and asked with concern, Anna, are you sick? I heard Mike took off work tonight to go to the hospital. I was startled. No, he didn't. Just a few minutes ago, Mike had messaged me saying he was working late. How could he have taken off work? I mumbled in confusion. He left in such a hurry. I thought it was because of you. Mike has been immersed in his research for many years, dedicated, and never taken a day off for anyone. I realized something was wrong and grabbed the hospital address someone had given me from my bag and took a taxi to the hospital. It was the hospital where Diana's daughter was. She was diagnosed with kidney disease at a young age and is surviving on dialysis. Mike must have known about this child. I recalled a day shortly after Mike woke up. His mother hurried over and said something to him. Suddenly, a faint smile appeared on Mike's lips. For the first time since those days of indifference and restraint, there was a lively expression on his face. It all started that day. He was no longer passive. After his mother left, Mike suddenly grabbed me and said, Anna, let's live well from now on. I won't let accidents happen again. You can trust me. The night in the ward was quiet and peaceful. I hurriedly walked, sweating cold as I passed closed doors and windows. As I brushed past a few nurses, their conversation drifted into my ears. I was so scared just now. MIA almost didn't make it. Poor Mia's mother, luckily her husband came. My brain buzzed. I fell into a daze. Diana, Mia's mother, is still alive. Realizing something, I walked towards Mia's room. Turning a corner, I saw two figures intertwined, and it pierced my heart like a dagger, making it hard to breathe. Mike was pressing a petite woman against the wall, holding her neck, and kissing her forcefully and passionately. I had never seen Mike so out of control. He didn't allow her any escape, aggressively and unrestrainedly ravishing her lips. The woman had nowhere to go. Finally, she crumbled in his arms, crying, Mike, I can't compete with your family. As long as I can live in peace every year, I'm willing to let you go. A blush appeared on the woman's fair face. In the dim light, I saw her face clearly. It was Diana. She indeed did not die. Mike's eyes were full of affection as he held Diana's face, his voice low and hoarse. Why did you lie to me, Diana? Do you want to see me die? Diana's lips trembled, like a startled deer. Yes, your mother forced me to. Mike patiently brushed away her messy hair, comforting her. There will be no more trouble in the future. I won't let you two be in danger. Diana seemed to sense something and a hint of panic flashed in her eyes. Mike, what are you going to do? Mike's tone was despairing yet affectionate. I promised to marry that stranger. I will be someone else's husband, just as his family wishes, watching over you from a distance, with no danger for the rest of my life. That night, I was sent to the emergency room because of abdominal pain. In a daze, the words strange woman became daggers, stabbing me all over. Curling up in bed, I tightly held the ridiculous report. The doctor stood by the bed, frowning as he looked at my test results. Your condition is very bad. Anemia, malnutrition, stomach problems, depression, almost didn't save the child. Where is the child's father? Give him a call. Decide whether to keep it or not. I endured the overwhelming nausea and closed my eyes, saying, no need. The child has no father. In fact, this child was the result of an accident. One late night, Mike, who never drinks alcohol, got drunk and came back to kiss me at the entrance, in front of the man I've liked for 10 years. I didn't resist, and that one time, it led to me having this child. Lying in the hospital bed, I inexplicably opened Diana's social media platform, finding the date of that day, and discovered it was the night Diana's dance performance, Farewell, trended. Farewell became a myth in the hearts of countless lovers in the following years. In her final message, Diana wrote, "You are my antidote and my way home." It was probably that night that Mike made the decision to let go. They bid farewell from a distance, using a small screen, choosing to say goodbye to each other. But I thought that night Mike truly loved me. I forced myself to get up from the bed, wiping away tears almost mechanically. "Doctor, I don't want the child. Can you schedule a surgery for me?" Due to my poor health, the doctor scheduled the surgery for half a month later. He reminded me to prioritize getting my body in good shape and not to worry too much. I decided to temporarily suspend my work. The free time gave me enough space to figure out how to move forward in the future. I am going to break off the engagement with Mike, but not now. My research project is just a step away. It requires cooperation with Mike. The day I made my decision, I dragged my ailing body to Mike's house, intending to sound him out. Outside the door, I accidentally overheard a conversation between Mike's mother and Mike. "Mike, do you remember what you promised Anna's grandfather?" his mother asked. Standing in the cold wind, Mike replied in a flat tone, "I remember. If I marry Anna, your family can inherit her grandfather's estate." Mrs. Shin frowned. "It's not just for our family, but also for yourself. Mia's illness costs $20,000 a month. And this is just the beginning. Our family's financial chain is broken. How are you going to support MIA? Mike scoffed. "Do I have a choice? You used Diana's life to threaten me last time. What do you want me to do this time? Last time you forced her to jump into the sea. What's your plan this time?" Mom, you should know, Diana died. "I won't live alone," Mike's mother said, exasperated. Mike stood firm. "Don't lie to me, you know my determination." I didn't push in. I just quietly returned to the car alone. The cold white light at the street corner shone through the glass and streamed in. I silently watched the bustling avenue, my fingernails deeply embedded in the soft shell of the steering wheel. Our family and Mike's family have been friends for a long time. When my grandfather passed away, I was too young. Mike has been by my side ever since I could remember. I really liked him, and when he was bullied, I would secretly stand up for him. When he was punished by his father to kneel in the deep night, I would sneak into the kitchen to steal buns for him, ending up in the hospital for half a month due to burns. Over the following years, countless such incidents occurred. Actually, it's okay if he doesn't respond to me. I can't stop him from liking someone else. But Mike confessed his love to me. I thought he finally saw my virtues. Little did I know, everything had a price tag. When I came to my senses, tears were already streaming down my face. 10 years later, I finally called my grandfather's lawyer. Why would my grandfather's inheritance go to Mike's family when I marry him? After a brief pause, the lawyer said, "Your grandfather set up a trust fund before he passed away. If Mike marries you, their family will receive this inheritance. What if I don't get married? It would be directly transferred to your name. However, at present, most shareholders have pledged allegiance to Mike. It would be quite difficult for you to gain control. In other words, this marriage contract must be in place in the short term, until I have the ability to clean up the situation." I forced myself to eat, even if my stomach churned, vomiting until only bile was left. I had to ensure my nutrition intake. I'm not a strong person, and this process was especially painful. I often curled up in bed at night, gritting my teeth, forcing myself to face the uncertain future. I need to get better. I have to stay alive in order to fight them. That night, Mike came back. He brought a bouquet of flowers, the standard style from the flower shop at the entrance of the residential area. He looked at my instant noodles in the bowl and furrowed his brows. "You eat this when I'm not home." Did Mom not come? She took a day off. Mike fell silent for a moment, then lifted his apron and went outside, saying, "The food will be ready soon." There was a faint scent of jasmine in the air. I never used jasmine perfume. It must be from his clothes. I pulled out a chair and sat at the dining table, telling the kitchen staff, "I haven't been feeling well lately. Can we postpone the wedding?" Mike's eyelashes quivered slightly as he replied, "There has never been a precedent in our family to postpone the wedding. If you're unwell, I can accompany you to the hospital." I looked at the person bustling in the kitchen and forced a bitter smile. It turns out that loving someone can be acted out. To save Diana's life, Mike can play along with me for a lifetime. When he returns, he will bring me hand-shredded chicken, watch my favorite movies with me after dinner, and sneak a kiss affectionately in a tipsy moment, just like a perfect husband. I stared at Mike's face, feeling more and more resentful each day. Several times, I couldn't help but want to slap his hypocritical face and make him go to hell. As the wedding day approached, the issue of cancelling the engagement became more pressing. My main job is a lecturer at the same university as Mike. We worked together in the same lab and had a rare good collaboration. But when it came to company matters, I was completely clueless. It was extremely difficult to regain control of the company. The whole process almost drained all my brain cells. My grandfather's people always shook their heads helplessly and said, "Anna, you really have no talent in business." Funny, right? I was like the mediocre and incompetent supporting female character in a romance novel. I couldn't build my own business empire overnight. I had to face a reality. To reclaim the company that had been slowly eroded by Mike's family for so many years, I had to resort to clumsy methods that were detrimental to me. To make it happen, I purposely accompanied Mike on several visits home. During conversations, I hinted at my expectations for the wedding. This undoubtedly gave Mike's family great courage and confidence, believing that their inheritance from my grandfather would eventually fall into their hands. At the end of the month, Mike's family launched a high-risk gamble, expanding their business aggressively to seize the initiative. My and Mike's wedding suddenly became the most talked about topic of the year. Just when I thought things would continue smoothly, Diana showed up. She completely disregarded Mike's protection and appeared in front of me, extending her hand with a smile. "Nice to meet you, Anna. I'm Mike's wife." At that moment, I had just undergone a miscarriage, sweating profusely. Diana boldly blocked me in the cold wind and declared war seriously. Clutching my coat tightly, I coldly said, "Sorry, I didn't know that you are used to calling mistresses wives." Diana's smile froze. "Anna, why deceive yourself? I've already given birth to a child. Mike probably doesn't even want to touch you, right?" She lifted her head arrogantly. "I allow your presence. Allow Mike to occasionally come home to visit you. You should thank me." I had run out of patience, grabbed her hair and pressed her against the car window. I sneered coldly, "Open your eyes and see. What qualifications do you have to negotiate with me?" Diana was terrified. She screamed, "How dare you touch me?" I gripped her so tightly that my knuckles turned white. "Do you think you're dying too slowly?" Diana froze, motionless on the ground. I leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "It's not you allowing Mike to be with me. It's you having to endure it. As long as I want, Mike can never see you again. Understand?" Diana's face turned pale. "Anna, how dare you?" I kicked her hard, got into the car with anger. After what just happened, my hands and feet were shaking. In my over 20 years of life, this was the first time I had been so tough. It felt really good. I wasn't afraid of Diana telling Mike, because in Mike's eyes, she has always had the image of a delicate and gentle flower. She loves Mike too much and wouldn't dare to provoke me on her own. For me, right now is a crucial time in my promotion to associate professor. I had intended to focus on recovering and returning to normal work. I didn't plan on getting too tangled up with Diana. A few days later, I received a call from the lab. Mike's graduate student cried and asked me, "Anna, when are you coming back? It seems like our data has been destroyed." Upon hearing the news, I hurriedly drove to the lab. On the cold winter day, the fluorescent lights in the hallway flickered on and off, and students' discussion could be heard from the rooms. As I pushed open the door, I saw several students gathered around some computers, their eyes red with anger. "Anna, your computer has also been tampered with." There was a jasmine scent in the air that didn't belong in the lab. Mike walked over with a group of students, asking softly, "What's wrong?" On the lab computer, there were fresh tea stains that hadn't dried. The scene was a mess. One student told Mike, "Someone came looking for you and spilled tea on the table." Not only the data, but also our samples, were all ruined. Eating and drinking were always forbidden in the lab. Only an outsider would dare to do such a thing. At that moment, a soft, gentle voice suddenly came from the door, slightly out of breath. "Sorry, Anna, I accidentally spilled tea just now. I'll go downstairs to buy you some tissues. Go clean it up quickly." Mike's eyes showed a hint of panic. Perhaps he didn't expect Diana to appear in front of me so unexpectedly. "How come you're here?" Diana's face turned slightly red. "After knowing each other for so many years, can't I come to see you and catch up?" Looking at Diana's excited, rosy cheeks, I suddenly walked towards her. Diana's face showed regret. "I accidentally ruined Anna's things. I didn't mean to." I slapped Diana hard across the face, catching her off guard. "Do you really think you can destroy such important research data and just apologize lightly to make it right? 2 million in research funds wasted just like that. Do you have any idea that because of you, several of them might not graduate? Not to mention, it included years of hard work." The sudden turn of events plunged the lab into silence. Diana covered her face, eyes quickly turning red. Anna, no matter what, it's not right to hit someone. I raised my hand again. I won't kill you. Mike grabbed my arm, saying calmly, Anna, don't cause trouble for her. I turned and met his cold gaze. That moment, I suddenly realized that the surface peace could no longer be maintained. Mike, you're admitting it, right? His tone was firm. This time, I'll make it up to you. That day, with Mike's strong protection, Diana faced no punishment. Relying on his many years of connections, Mike unilaterally suppressed this incident. To cover for Diana, he even personally paid $2 million to cover the losses. The students dared not speak up in anger, gathering daily with worried faces. Mike and I were in a full-blown Cold War. One afternoon, in the midst of helping students choose topics, someone suddenly ran over and told me, Anna, that person has posted about you online. I took out my phone and saw vicious words about me on the homepage. A video captured the scene of me slapping Diana that day from a tricky angle. Every second, the comments were growing crazier, with more people insulting me. I became the wicked female supporting role in the story. No one cared that 3 years of my research efforts were ruined in an instant. Many students were delayed in graduating, or even unable to graduate, because of this debacle. They just hoped that the male and female leads in their hearts would, like in all novels, have a happy ending. Diana's incident had even alarmed Mike's family. The day after the incident, Mike's mother asked me and Mike to come home for a meal, and she criticized Mike in front of me. I threw away the things left by the person you kept. This was to indicate their family's stance on the matter. Mike's hand trembled. I understand. During the meal, Mike's mother was very patient with me and readily agreed when I suggested postponing the wedding date. I didn't want to stay in that oppressive atmosphere, so I turned and left. The moonlight was cold. The housekeeper from Mike's house was carrying a box out and accidentally spilled the contents on the ground. A few small items rolled to my feet. The person rushed over anxiously. Sorry, Anna. These were the items the madam wanted to throw away. I lightly stepped on a piece of emerald green feather and asked, Mike's. Diana gave them to Mike. A cold wind blew. I slowly bent down and picked up the small items. A familiar, soft feather, something I had treasured for a long time. In the box were a few pieces of pear candy, a small keychain, and a crumpled love letter without a signature. Do you think these are the things Diana gave him? Why yes. I suddenly smiled in the midst of their anxious gazes. Tears welled up in my eyes. These were all from Diana. Just because of my timidity, the things I secretly gave Mike years ago were mistakenly attributed to Diana. These were all mine. Mike must not have known when they were put in my car. The housekeeper hurried away with the box. I looked at the dark night and suddenly said, Mike, accompany me on my birthday. The wind lifted his thick wool coat. Shadows flickered on his chiseled face. His expression was murky. Anna, is it necessary? He didn't even bother to pretend, his eyes showing disgust. I smiled and said, yes, Mike. I've liked you for 10 years. Done so much for you. You should accompany me on my birthday, shouldn't you? Mike furrowed his brows, understanding. On my birthday, Mike drove me to the outskirts, to the observatory to see the stars. They say couples who make wishes under the stars will live happily ever after. All these years, I've been looking forward to this day. But standing next to Mike right now, looking up at the stars, I suddenly felt it wasn't as beautiful as I thought. It even felt a little cold. But seeing Mike unhappy made me happy. I've suffered for so many years. So what's a little discomfort for him? I took a photo and posted a status. At 10 p.m., my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a photo from Diana. She was nestled in Mike's arms, wearing a camisole, her face blushing. Mike's outfit suggested he had been out for a meeting and stayed out overnight 2 days ago. Anna, he was mine a long time ago. Even if you get married, you're just taking care of him for me, she said. MIA won't be our last child. Wanna bet? I replied. Diana disappeared for a few minutes, then came running over to question me. Why isn't Mike answering his phone? Of course, his phone was in the car. Diana was getting impatient and her messages were provoking. MIA is looking for her dad. Can you ask him to come back? She urged. I pretended not to see. Soon, Diana sent another message. Anna, I advise you not to be so malicious. If you dare to keep him in the dark, be prepared for the consequences. MIA is his heart. He won't forgive you. I turned off my phone and tugged on Mike's sleeve. Mike, I don't want to look at the Weaver Girl star anymore. Find another one. And the ones after that, find them for me one by one. By the time we got back to the car, it was almost dawn. Mike turned on his phone and saw a series of missed calls, his face changing abruptly. He hurriedly made a call, his anxious tone barely concealed. Diana, what's wrong? On the other end, Diana was crying. This time her tone changed. Mike, I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, MIA is sick. I messaged Anna 2 hours ago, She refused to tell you. MIA is very ill. Can you come now? It was the first time I saw such clear emotions on Professor Mike's face. He locked his dark eyes onto mine, sharp as a knife. Anna, get out of the car. I laughed. It's 1:30 in the morning. Are you going to leave me in this deserted place? Get out. Don't make me say it again, he said, opening the car door and driving off. I stood in the cold wind, watching the car's taillights disappear at the end of the road. Diana's message arrived right on time. A hint of smugness present. Did you get kicked out of the car? Remember, don't be so self-righteous in the future. I made a call. Half a minute later, a black car stopped in front of me. The lawyer rolled down the window. Anna, get in. I sent the lawyer my chat history, with Diana as evidence. On the way back, the lawyer said, Anna, the engagement can be dissolved soon. But this time, your family might suffer heavy losses. I knew it was just self-preservation. These days, I set new topics for Mike's students, applied for grants for poor graduate students. Over the years, I've saved up enough to support several students to graduate successfully, and I plan to transfer them under my name once I become an associate professor. After all, Mike has become increasingly indifferent to them. The students' future shouldn't be a sacrifice for their love. The next day when I turned on my phone, there were many missed calls and texts from friends. Mike is going crazy looking for you. Where are you? At the moment, I was sitting in a taxi heading to the hospital. Due to days of stress, I had caught a bad cold and my body wasn't getting any better. While waiting to see the doctor, I was checking my phone and realized that it happened to be Diana's birthday today. Flowers spread from the auditorium to the grass outside. The birthday party was grand and magnificent. Fans praised her, passers-by admired her, and the flashing lights at the venue kept flashing on and off. Diana looked like a fallen goddess, charming and beautiful, but she seemed a bit absent-minded today, staring blankly in a certain direction, looking sad. Anna, remember to have regular checkups and take your medication on time. The doctor's reminder brought me back to reality. I replied absent-mindedly, thank you. As I walked out carrying my medicine, I suddenly bumped into someone's arms. There was a chill in the air around him, his voice hoarse. Anna, where have you been? I looked up and met Mike's gaze, involuntarily taking a step back. He seemed to have been looking for me all night. Don't touch me. I don't want anything to do with you right now. Mike suddenly grabbed my wrist, his eyes red, asking, Anna, why you? Why didn't you tell me sooner? I pushed him away hard, and threw the ultrasound report from a few months ago in his face. Mike, are you playing games? Whoever it belongs to, you like them. Are you shameless? Mike looked at the last line, stunned. In his usually indifferent eyes, there was a hint of confusion. This is our child. He froze, delicately caressing the photo, stammering, Anna, we have a child. Not anymore, I replied expressionlessly, cutting him off. I wanted to give you a surprise, but the day you and Diana were together at the hospital, I got rid of it. Mike's face instantly turned pale. I grabbed his collar with a smile, pushed him against the wall, and asked him if he knew how painful a miscarriage was. I told him to stay away from me. Mike seemed drained of energy in that moment. I handed him some application forms and casually mentioned that I had just been promoted to associate professor. I hinted that I wanted him to transfer his students to me. As I walked away, I told him to think about it, and that I would be waiting at home that night. That night, Mike lingered downstairs for a long time. I stood by the window watching him, as he seemed to be making a crucial decision, staring at his fingertips, where the sparks of his cigarette faded and reignited repeatedly without moving a muscle. Eventually, Mike returned, looking frozen. He pulled me close at the dining table and begged me not to leave him, promising to fulfill all my requests. However, he refused to sign on the student transfer forms. I had to make him drunk that night to force him to sign his name on the forms. Mike slumped on the couch, muttering in his sleep, promising to treat me well in the future, and protect me from anyone who would mistreat me. I decided to leave that night, taking the signed application forms with me. The next day, Mike's family received the termination of engagement letter. I disappeared without a trace on the day Mike and I were supposed to register our marriage. Mike called, his tone anxious, asking where I was. I turned off my phone, signed the inheritance papers with the lawyer, and took ownership of my grandfather's company and assets. After losing my financial support, Mike's family soon fell into heavy debt. They tried to lay low and avoid confrontation with rivals. Mike had changed a lot. He no longer exuded the same charm as before and began skipping classes frequently. One day, Mike stopped me and remarked that I had lost weight. I took a deep breath and told him that our relationship had almost cost me my life. I reminded him that he had a child now and needed to accumulate some good karma for her sake. Later that night, Diana called me, demanding to know why Mike was ignoring her. I calmly reminded her of the time She took credit for my work while I was hospitalized. I threatened to bring journalists to her door if she dared to call me again. Diana stayed quiet for a long time after that. Suddenly, a photo went viral, showing Mike kissing Diana on an observatory platform under the moonlight. Fans were outraged, blaming me for leaving the situation. Despite all the drama, my life was finally starting to feel like my own. I hosted a dinner for my students at my new home, seeing them transformed into confident individuals, grateful for the opportunity to continue their education. As the hot pot steam rose, I sat watching the scene, feeling a tinge of emotion in my eyes. I realized that the school didn't actually force you to overwork. It was just an excuse. Diana messaged me again, thanking me for returning the man she considered perfect to her. I casually replied, munching on an apple, and suggested she call Professor Mike herself. Diana's manipulative tactics backfired, leading to an irreparable mistake that affected Mike's work, resulting in severe consequences. MIA inadvertently mentioned that her mother wanted everything related to Anna to be destroyed. Despite Diana's attempts to meddle in Mike's life, I have moved on and remained unfazed by her actions. Having experienced 2 disasters in a row, the student couldn't take it anymore. They decided to expose a video and write a joint letter requesting the revocation of Mike's professor qualification. Formerly Mike's fans, who were gossiping online, were now caught in a storm of angry university students. Was Diana being stupid? Half a year ago, she destroyed Anna's experimental sample, and half a year later, she instigated a child to burn data. Why didn't her parents have half a brain on her? It's not the first time this has happened. Someone posted a report from 6 months ago. The top likes and comments still criticize me. That person was indignant. Last time, I commented that Diana was messed up, but no one listened. Everyone was too busy attacking Anna. Do they think us graduate students don't go online? The students couldn't hold back anymore. Professor Mike had wielded his power to suppress the matter. We wanted to report it, but Anna wouldn't allow it. She'd rather face online shaming herself. In the academic field, unless there's no other choice, no one would report their mentor. I didn't want these dedicated academic kids to be dragged into the whirlpool of public opinion early on, sacrificing their futures for the sake of justice. Under the influence of online bullying, Diana quickly collapsed. That day, in my office, I witnessed the argument between Mike and Diana. Diana cried bitterly, "MIA is your daughter. Why don't you understand she doesn't want you involved with Anna? What's wrong with that?" Mike coldly replied, "What does this have to do with Anna? Those are my data. Until a fire burns you, you won't know what pain is." Like how he easily bought my years of hard work with 2 million, but couldn't accept his own research being destroyed in an instant. That hard drive, I had given it to Mike many years ago, with my name engraved on it. Over the years, Mike's data had always been on it and couldn't be replaced in the short term. But Diana didn't understand. They ended their quarrel without resolution. As Diana left, she glanced at me defiantly, implying in her words that no matter what I or MIA did, Mike would always forgive me. Don't get too carried away. Her words hit a nerve, and Diana, under the pressure of online bullying, eventually broke down. The few days later, it was rumored online that Diana was planning to make a comeback. The whole corridor could hear Mike's voice on the phone, asking her to stop causing trouble, take care of MIA at home since her leg won't fully recover, and why she had to compare herself with Anna. Diana suddenly raised her voice, as if accusing Mike of finding her repulsive due to her disability, and threatening to die if he talked to Anna. As Mike hung up, he saw me standing at the door. I politely smiled and asked to pick up some students' materials. Now, all his students were under my guidance, and I had a lot to work on. As I left, Mike suddenly stopped me by calling out, "Anna." I turned back, puzzled, and he looked at me with complex eyes. "I have cancer, not much time left. Sorry to trouble you." Nonchalantly, I nodded and said I couldn't help as my finances were tight. Before leaving, I realized my tone sounded cold and added, "Maybe ask someone else." Seeing Mike's pale face, I relented, "Well, I wish you a speedy recovery." Diana's dance performance had garnered quite a bit of anticipation. However, her embarrassing fall off the stage during the lively music had become widely known. Diana's legs were completely ruined. She would never step on stage again. Since then, it was visibly clear that Diana's mental state had deteriorated. Towards the end of March, her dance piece Farewell was suddenly exposed for plagiarism by a student who took the art entrance exam years ago. The piece was almost identical to Diana's Farewell, made nearly half a year earlier when Diana was one of the judges. The scrutiny infuriated the public, with calls for justice growing louder. The screenshots collected by the lawyer were finally put into use as Diana's provocative comments were exposed, awakening netizens to the truth. Diana panicked as she tried to explain and defend herself, but was met with harsh criticism. All the venomous words she had once used against me years ago were now being hurled back at her. I called the company, and on the other end, they assured me that the money had been transferred to the art exam student I helped. She thanked me for standing up for her. Anna, do you still want to trend next? After a moment's thought, I decided against it and requested that the remaining money be given to that student for a better life. The last leaves fell outside the window, and the rusty tree cutter emitted piercing sounds, resonating in the winter sky. Mike had moved out of the laboratory, and his wall of honors had been cleared. Only a bare white wall remained, soon to be replaced with my name. I returned the gift Mike had once given me, which included a bracelet he'd given me when I just arrived at the lab. He touched the slightly dim diamond and said, Anna, maybe I was wrong about her. I stood there, silent. Mike lowered his head, bitterness spilling from his lips. How could she become that way? Greedy, malicious, unrepentant. Anna, if only I had stayed with you. Mike, did you ever ask for my consent? I interrupted him. Mike paused. I continued. I don't want to be chosen. Who gave you the right to find a path difficult, and then use me as your retreat? Ultimately, greedy and malicious person is actually you, Anna. Anna, it's time to go. Someone lazily shouted at me from across the street. Mike paused, then turned to look at a man leaning against a car not far away. He was wearing an open front double-breasted wool coat, standing lazily in the wind. His gaze towards me carried a smile. I nodded. Don't tell me about your matters next time. I have a boyfriend now. The wind howled. Mike's long overdue confession came from behind. Anna, I love you. I paused my footsteps, turned my back to him, and laughed. Is your love something very precious? I had no mood to talk to him, so I walked past the front of the car and got in. William closed the door for me, greeted Mike indifferently, and took me away. On the way back, I said, thanks to William for helping me with the act. William was driving, chatting with me somewhat absent-mindedly, settling the performance fee, or inviting me for a meal. In fact, William's life was worse than mine. His family had fallen on hard times. He racked up debts in business amounting to tens of millions, and only recently managed to pay it off at the beginning of the year. He had just made a decent profit, bought a house and a car. At least I had some reputation in academia. I had taken on a few new students, which was not very reassuring. My company had its ups and downs, but we could get by. So many years had passed, but my business acumen was still as bad as ever. However, as I stared at the colorful neon lights outside the window, I oddly felt a sense of contentment living in the mundane world. Almost half a year passed. Several students successively produced results, and were about to graduate smoothly. On the first day of autumn, William, together with a few students, held a grand thank you banquet. He also sent invitations to a few close friends. It was on a morning like this that Diana burst into the scene of the banquet, with a bucket of gasoline. The pungent smell of gasoline was wildly splashed into the air. It's all because of you. You took everything away from me. Her demeanor was frantic, her eyes looking at me full of resentment. Anna, why do you get to live a happier life than me? Go to hell. Her leg was ruined, making her limp when she walked. Gasoline was splashed everywhere, almost destroying half of the venue. At this time, Mike was diagnosed with cancer. Diana was deeply in debt again, and MIA had grown a stubborn character, often quarreling with Diana, blaming her for coming back alive. If Diana died, I would be her stepmother, and all my wealth would go to MIA. On top of Mike's neglect, Diana went mad. As Mike hurried over, the lit lighter had already ignited the gasoline. The flames surged fiercely, engulfing most of the flammable materials in seconds. In an instant, the guests scattered. The flames, like angry waves, gobbled up everything in their path. Quick on his feet, William pulled me to a corner as Diana rushed in. I watched Diana perish in the flames. Covered in gasoline, Mike stood in the center of the hall, staring at me decisively. At that moment, it was hard to discern the emotions in his eyes, whether it was heartbreak or regret. Diana grabbed his clothes, embraced him from behind. The flames effortlessly crawled upward. The face I had cared about for many years finally dissipated in the vast sea of flames. William led me out of the side door. He held me tightly in his arms as soon as we were out. Are you hurt anywhere? He asked, with a fragile look in his eyes, trembling. I shook my head. I'm okay. The guests on the scene had managed to escape in time, with no casualties. My hair got burnt at one end, but it wasn't a big deal. William hugged me tightly. Thank goodness. I thought that dream was real. Dream? I dreamt that you and Mike got married. Everyone around you was plotting against you. When you perished in the flames at 28, it was just like now. Looking at the sky devoured by flames, I said, that dream was quite terrifying. Luckily, it was just a dream. Except for Mike and Diana dying in the fire, there were no casualties. With the announcement of Mike and Diana's obituaries, their past was completely exposed to the world. The world finally returned to normal. In late autumn, William and I went to the mountains outside the city. The cold wind blew, and the dried grass made rustling sounds as far as the eye could see. Among a row of tombstones, Mike's and Diana's graves were placed close together. MIA died of illness. It's really tragic, William said. If you're not going to raise her, why bring her into this world? I placed a bouquet of flowers in front of their graves, threw a voice recorder and an old phone into the fire pit. As the wind blew, the plastic parts crackled in the fire. What's this? William asked. Mike's recording of Diana's selfish and malicious behaviors, and the phone where I contacted Diana, I replied. That night, Mike confided in me, and I sent the audio to Diana exactly as it was. In return, I received a harsher verbal assault from Diana. My presence had long become a thorn in her heart. Meeting William's pensive gaze, I earnestly said, I agree with you. Perhaps we are all supporting roles. The things that happened in your dream should also be my ending. After all, the online abuse I endured years ago was baseless and even reached an extreme level. It's as if, for the reunion of Mike and Diana, we all should sacrifice unconditionally. The fire gradually became stronger. The plastic casing crackled in the fire. I squatted down, extinguishing the burnt ashes. The only way to survive in a story that didn't favor me was to kill the main character. William added for me. The wind whispered softly between us. I smiled, took down the foundation of Mike's family, shook Diana's trust in Mike, let them escalate conflicts and arguments, leading to mutual destruction in the end. At this point, the author would naturally abandon the protagonist. Ordinary people can live well. I poured a cup of wine on their grave. The wind picked up, and William put a coat on me. Let's go, it's time to go home. Walking side by side with him on the rugged mountain road, I kept thinking, what's your role? William looked at me, saying, maybe a pitiful passerby who has loved the supporting actress for many years, unrequited, and will have to bury her in the future. I was stunned. Something was stirring in my memory, but I couldn't recall. William raised his eyebrows. It's okay, passers-by aren't supposed to be remembered. The author didn't write down. The wind rustled through the treetops, and the echoing sound of rustling dry leaves filled the mountains. William's voice came and went. Anna, I'm glad you're alive. Maybe, in an unseen place, you've become the protagonist of some author. I chuckled. Then please, have her spare me, and let the story end here. The road ahead. I want to walk by myself as an ordinary person. William's clear laughter floated into the distance with the wind. She's probably going to hear those words, right?